All right, so if you have gotten a UK visa, right on your passport visa page, you must have been familiar with the phrase, no recourse to public funds. Yes, if you are a migrant in this country. Though a lot of migrants, they have recourse to these public funds. It depends on the country where you are coming from or where you migrated to the UK from. Countries like some of these European countries around the UK, or some of the African countries. It depends if your government, the kind of agreement they have with the UK government, possibly the kind of treaty they sign with the UK government, your citizen might have access to public funds. But for where I am coming from, it is typically no recourse to public funds for me. Yes, as a Nigerian, because my government does nothing for me, doesn't care about the citizen. Yes, it is a government that always caring about their own turn. Currently, this is what we're seeing. Though this is not about my government anyway. So I am here to share with you the public funds you can have access to despite having no recourse to public funds on your passport visa page. All right, so my name is Chinyere Ojike. You are most welcome to my channel. Please subscribe to my channel. Endeavor to like this video, is very important to me, and keep watching. All right, so this content is basically about what public funds can migrants access in the UK. So I made a video in the past, it's been months, about what public funds are, the public funds that you cannot access as a migrant in the UK. You might search up for that video and go through it. But basically today I'll be talking about what are those public funds that you can access as a migrant in this country. Meanwhile, I've got this message in my inbox. Someone was asking me, this person is a dependent here in the UK, and he's currently working as a dependent to someone who came into the UK on a skilled workers visa. He was asking me, he was down, so he said, can he go to the hospital? Can he see a GP? That really got me concerned. You came into the UK as a dependent who is already working. You are working and you haven't registered with a GP. You don't have an NHS number yet. I don't know. See, NHS services, there are certain NHS services that are entirely free to everyone in the UK. No matter where you are coming from, you are entitled to free NHS services, although there are certain restrictions. But when it comes to you registering with a GP, consulting a GP, going to the emergencies, having access to palliative care, having treatment, maternity treatment, especially when you are pregnant, oh my goodness, you can access all this. They are all free of charge. When you have something like certain diseases, infection, gonococcus and gonorrhea or whatever have you, mental illnesses, you can access the NHS service for this. They are all there for you as a migrant in the UK. Hence, you are legal in this country. And for those of you who are students, you paid for health surcharge, for crying out loud. You can have access to all these services. These are not to say that you are seeking recourse to public funds, because you are entitled to this. There are even some that are not free to even those who are already citizens in this country, unless you might have to stay in the waiting list for years. Something like you talking in your tummy, you don't like your cosmetic surgery, this is the word for it. Or to say you want a golden teeth, honestly, NHS does not cover for that, because it's a sort of cosmetic surgery, you have to pay for it. All right, so these are the UK public funds which migrants can access for free. Number one is the state-funded school. If you move into the UK and you are staying for a long period of time, from 1 year, 2 years and above, your children can have access to free education, ranging from the ages of 4 years until the university level. You have access to free school. But if your child is to be attending a private school, definitely you are expected to pay, because private schools are not cheap in this country. But if it is a state-funded school like the government schools here, it is free of charge for all migrants. Free school dinner is another thing. Children in the schools from year 1 and year 2 can have access to free dinner. Just like in my child's school, yeah, he does have access to free school lunch. Though by the time he goes into year 3 and above, children from year 3 and above, they are expected to be paying for school dinner, unless you want to be bringing food from home, which is also allowed. Even now that my child has access to free school dinner, sometimes I do give him packed lunch depending on what is on the menu for the day. If it is something that he might not like to eat, I will definitely make school lunch for him. And, breakfast is something that you also pay for, because if you hear free school meals, breakfast is not included. If you want your child to be having breakfast at school, it starts from 8 o'clock until 8:45. You have to pay. In my child's school, it's £2, but basically my child have breakfast at home. Just a few times that we had to go for early morning appointment, I let him have breakfast. I let him have breakfast at school and I paid for it. All right, so these are some of the things you can have access to for free when it comes to education in the UK. Secondly, statutory maternity pay is another thing you can have access to. Hence, you are working in the UK and you are pregnant and it's about time for you to deliver. You can take your maternity leave, and while on your maternity leave, you get paid for it. But there is another one that is called short start maternity pay. You are not allowed to have access to that because it's also a public fund. But please endeavor to always find out. And sometimes it is always important you ask to know what you are entitled to and what you are not, especially if you're working in this very country, because it is funny how a lot of foreigners, migrants from Africa, how they are losing out in some of the benefits that are entitled to them. It baffles me to learn that a lot of us do not know that we are entitled to certain annual leave while working in this country. Even students on a 20 hours per week, you are entitled to certain number of, leave in a year while working here. Working year starts from April to April in this country. And if you fail to take this, your annual leave, honestly, it is gone. Yes, and you are not going to be paid for it, but when you take this leave, you are getting paid for it. So I recorded my last job. My manager, she realized somehow that a lot of us didn't know our rights when it comes to the leave we are expected to take while working. So sometimes she will allocate this annual leave to us. You will come on the rota, you will see you are off on so date. A lot of the students, because we had lots of Nigerian students working at my workplace, let's say about 4 or 5 of them then. So a lot of them will come to me, Chi, I don't know, this annual leave, why did she put me on annual leave? I don't want the leave. I'll be like, definitely you are going to be paid for it, and it is your right to take annual leave. Basically, depending on your kind of contract, most people get 28 days paid annual leave in this very country, which is around 5 weeks plus or more, depending on your contract. So endeavor to understand what your contract entails, And honestly, that was really sad to me, because it was obvious that a lot of us did not know our rights, when you were being asked to take this annual leave. And by right, your manager should not be the one to ask you to take annual leave. You should choose to take this annual leave as at when you would want to use it. Maybe you want to travel, you have a party, you have an event, you can ask for. Somebody that has 5 weeks, it's not something that you take once and for all. It's something that you take bit by bit. But because we were not asking for it, our manager decided to be allocating this to some of us on the rota, when you didn't even need it. So it's important you understand all this and know what you are entitled to in this very country. So another public funds you are entitled to is the statutory sickness pay. Yes. So when you are sick at work, just like during COVID, a lot of people, they took sick leave and they get paid for it. So even currently, no matter any kind of sickness you have, and hence it's something that wouldn't allow you to work efficiently, take an, apply for a sick leave, and you will definitely be paid for calling off for a sick leave Well, child benefit is the next. You can claim child benefit in the UK, if you are from all these countries that have treaty agreements with the UK, a country whereby the UK has a security reciprocal agreement with when it comes to work benefits and child benefits. Or if you are an EEA citizen. Another public fund that was newly introduced is the gas payments, the gas and electricity support that the government has been giving out to people. It depends on your working status in this country, on your earnings in this very country. But honestly, we did not apply for that. We started seeing, I've talked about this on my video. We started seeing the increment and the top up on its own. Every month we get this top up regularly. So if you get this top up in your meter, do not be worried, because you did not apply for it, you did not ask for it. So the government is giving out this public fund in support to families as regarding the recent increment in energy bill and crisis in this country. Any benefit that is based on your national insurance contribution, that is your NI, your tax credits, they are not regarded as public funds. Benefits such as incapacity benefits and guidance allowance, widow's benefits and bereavement, retirement pension, and besides, before ever someone starts claiming pension in this country, the person must have worked in this country, and then the person is retiring in this very country. That means the person must have gotten indefinite leave to remain. These people, now why you too much? So this is not regarded as public fund. Now, emphasizing more on national insurance contributions. This is why it is important you get your NI as soon as you arrive the UK, especially if you have the desire to work. Meanwhile, nobody comes to the UK and wouldn't want to work, especially when you are able and capable to do so. Because if you do not have a national insurance, it is difficult to find an employer who would employ you, and because national insurance is actually used to keep a track record of your taxes and your national insurance contributions. And when you do not have this, if you finally find somebody who would give you a job in this country, quote me, the amount of tax you'll be paying is higher compared to when you've got your national insurance. You will be taxed at high rates. So it is important you do the right thing. And conclusively, please, before you access any public funds, endeavor to ask questions. See if you can have access to it. Recently, I was looking for a job and I found a training offer, from my council. That's the local council here. It is a social service training, so I went to the job hub. I got a form and they were pleased to welcome me, gave me a form to apply, but it is a free funded program for 1 year. They will be paying me while doing the course. But I look at it, I said, no, I am not entitled to this. Hence, I do not have recourse to public funds. So you have to check. Because if I had taken up that, honestly, I would be fined for it. Yes, so until a certain period of time, when I have settled in this country, that is when I am entitled to public fund. So always check with your local authority or anything you are applying for. Even if you are getting a dental treatment, ask if you can have a public access to that, depending on the kind of dental treatment you are seeking to have access to. So endeavor to find out. Thank you so much for your time. Remember to like this video, please. And subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Keep coming for more. Bye for now.